Greatrix, Labour energy spokesman, and Michael Forsyth, Lord Forsyth, a former Thatcherite minister and long-standing Tory champion of free markets. I started by asking Tom Greatrix, what was the point of an energy price freeze when prices are falling?
The freeze was to ensure that during that period of time, the 17-month of that would apply, that we would bring some reforms to the energy market to make it clear, fair and transparent, and to give the regulator powers for when the dynamic competitive market, which people want to see happening, isn't working, and it hasn't been recently, that the regulator has a backstop power to step in, because when wholesale prices go up, your bills go up. When they come down, that doesn't follow. That isn't right, that isn't fair, and that needs to be dealt with.
Michael Forsyth, is Labour onto something here? Do you think that the energy price companies have been quick enough to pass on the fall in lower oil prices, and if not, don't politicians have a duty to speak out?
Well, I think your question was wrong, actually. I think Labour's policy has had an effect. I think when Ed Miliband announced that he was going to freeze prices, the energy companies went out and bought forward in the market. So they've not benefited, actually, from what Tom's quoting, which is the fall in spot prices. So the perverse effect of Ed's no doubt well-intentioned intervention has been to make it more difficult for people to enjoy the benefits of the current spot prices being lower. It's been completely counterproductive.
Well, let's put that to Tom Greatrix. Is that the case?
That's absolutely not the case, because Ofgem, who have access to market data, have got the figures that demonstrate that over the course of the last 12 months, the retail margin has gone up from 4 to 8%, and that's just the retail part of the...
But you're not dealing with the point, Tom, that energy companies buy forward in the market, so that today's spot price is not the price that they pay.
No, but I'm not talking about today's spot price. I'm talking about over a sustained period, over more than 12 months, and the data is based on both the spot price and the forward market as well. So if your suggestion is that on the 24th of September 2013, all of the big 6 energy companies put all of their power and put contracts in to take them forward all the way through to May 2015, and that's not what they're telling me when I speak to them about their...
No, but they are telling you that they bought forward in the market because they had to protect their position. No responsible chief executive, faced with the prospect of a Labour government which was going to freeze prices, wouldn't actually use their ability to buy forward in the market to protect themselves, would they?
Michael, can I just move the conversation on? Do you think there are any circumstances where politicians have a duty to intervene in the market and basically say, look, competition isn't working, we have to take charge?
Well, if there's not proper competition. But of course we have a large number of providers now. People can switch between providers. There's less competition than there should be, but that's partly because the last Labour government allowed the consolidation to the big 5.
That's not actually the case in terms of the smaller suppliers that are in the market. The vast majority of those were in the market before 2010 and previously.
You did reduce competition.
No, well, you will recall, because I think you're a member of the government that did it, the restriction on the big suppliers being able to integrate and vertically integrate, and then that process of consolidation of merger and acquisition started before 1997. And the reality is also that when it comes to the issue around switching, the vast majority of people who are on the standard variable rates, those are the people who tend to be the poorest, do not switch to the same level. Switching now is at its lowest level. Switching to the small suppliers at its lowest level for a year. So switching helps, but it only helps a very small proportion of people, because people find this whole market difficult to engage with, and they also find that they don't trust the companies. So that needs to be properly addressed.
I agree with that, and that is one of the reasons why I think it's foolish to try and move the energy market to a position where it follows more closely the rises and falls in the day-to-day market. Because if you're poor and living on a budget, the last thing you want are huge volatility in your energy prices, which is one of your biggest bills.
The point is, Michael, that yo-yos go up and down. And yet what happens, and what has happened, is that when a wholesale price increase happens, your bills, my bills, everybody who's listening to this bills, they go up very quickly. When they come down, that doesn't follow. That's a real problem there. So to say, you can't have a one-way hedge, and that's the issue here about the way in which
but if you think
the market works.
If you think the man in Whitehall can run the business so much more effectively, why don't you just nationalise them?
No, what I think the man in Millbank, the regulator, should have the opportunity to be able to do is to have a backstop power if the competitive parts of the market aren't working properly.
How does this backstop power work exactly?
Well, that gives the regulator the opportunity to say, and a duty to say, that over time, if wholesale prices, which are about half of your bill, come down, that needs to be passed on to the end user, to the consumer,
what if they go up?
A business.
What if they go up, Tom? Does he have a duty to tell them to put prices up?
There doesn't seem to be a problem when they go up, does there? Because as soon as the wholesale prices go up, every business in this country's bills go up almost immediately.
No, but if he's deciding,
if
he's deciding what happens on the price, then presumably that dialogue has to go both ways.
Michael, can I ask you whether you think that Labour has captured the zeitgeist a bit here, this sort of idea that the energy companies are in some way voracious or greedy? Business hasn't exactly helped itself over the last few years, has it?
Of course people are finding life very difficult, and of course there is a problem with living standards. That is understood. But the facts are that Labour has added enormously. I mean, it was Ed Miliband as Energy Secretary who started this whole business of putting the green costs onto people's energy bills. Now, the honest thing to do would have been to have funded that out of taxation.
Just on a broader point, Tom Greatrix, do you think that Ed Miliband's talked about predatory capitalism and all the rest of it, and some people in business regard him as being a business basher? Do you think that will be popular with voters, or do you think it actually will drive away the kind of floating voters Labour needs to attract at the election?
I don't recognise that characterisation. I spend a lot of time talking to business, talking to investors, talking to people in the energy sector. And actually, when you talk through our policies, and particularly the reforms we want to make to the market, there's a lot of support for that. And there's a lot of support from a number of the companies who recognise, and they use different language about it, but they recognise through their own actions over a period of time, they've lost the trust of their consumers. There's a crisis of confidence and a deficit of trust that needs to be addressed. Partly that's about transparency in the market, partly that's about companies behaving better, and partly that's about ensuring that in a market which is not like many others, because it's not really a discretionary product, it's quite hard to choose to live without power. Therefore, there needs to be a regulator in place to ensure that if the market isn't working properly, that they're able to step in.
Tom Greatrix and Michael Forsyth. A couple of